Hello and welcome. It's Leah Zalams here, the founder and CEO for Z-Axis Leadership Consultancy, also founder of Leading Your Career Change Facebook group, and running a series of 4 masterclasses geared for job hunters, for business consultants, for professionals who are either looking for that next role within their organizations or their next role within or outside of their organization, or indeed a career change altogether, and perhaps into the wild and woolly world of consulting. Last week we focused on who are we being in the world of social media. How are we showing up in terms of our professional brand, our personal brand? What are we doing on LinkedIn? Are we posting? Are we thinking about what that next client, what that next company, what that next boss might be interested in hearing about, that we can post about, that we can show what we stand for and what our unique value is? And I know, particularly for a lot of professional people, and particularly those of you who have been in corporate roles for a very long time, you perhaps don't have a big mindset or have done a lot of work necessarily on your professional brand in terms of social media. So I'm hoping that masterclass last week helped you to start looking at what you were doing in that area. I also covered the 4 types of entrepreneurial professional category that you might find yourself in. Are you more passion driven? Are you mission driven? Are you opportunist, where you recognize business opportunities and perhaps start lots of things but struggle to finish them? Or are you undecided and not really sure of which way to go? We covered a lot of ground last week. I do encourage you to go back and rewatch that video. I did that myself this morning. Today's focus is, what is the truth about job seeking, or whether you are seeking a job or a business, trying to make money after the age of 45 is really tricky. It can be really tricky. And so this will be the focus today of, last week we talked about how we are appearing in our external world. What's going on in our internal world? So I'm going to be sharing 3 sets or 3 different types of beliefs that I see in my clients that can be keeping them stuck, and they can be really, really stubborn to shift. So we're going to talk about 3 sorts of 3 types of beliefs there. And we're also going to have a few things that we can do about it immediately as well. And as usual, the focus, I encourage you to come to this class with a specific intention in mind. If you could change one thing as a result of the information and the engagement in this class today that would help you in your quest for that next job, for that next role, for that next client, for that next project that you're embarking on, what would that one thing be? Because when we get really specific with our ask, our unconscious mind can go to work and deliver the information and the insights that we're looking for. Because one universal truth is that there is so much wisdom and so much experience and so much expertise in our unconscious mind that is already there for us. We just need assistance to access it. And that's a whole other topic as well, but we start by what we consciously ask for. And we can only start in our conscious mind because that's how we live in the world. So, what are these 3 beliefs or 3 sets of beliefs that might be keeping you stuck? And I roll them all up under the banner of our imposter voices. And I'd love you to share what your most popular, let's say, inner voice is that will stand in the way of you taking action. And you know what that voice is when you are wanting to do something that perhaps is new and you haven't tried it for the first time and you are afraid of failing. You might be afraid of it not working. You might be afraid that you will, the consequences of doing that thing will be too painful. What are the voices in your head that are loud and clear when you are thinking about doing that thing? That's often a good place to start. And I know, like a lot of the time for me, it can show up as, who do you think you are? Oh, you know, what are you doing this for? You're speaking into a vacuum, a lot of it is around, if we unpack what it is, they're all different phrases and words that ultimately are trying to convince me that I'm not good enough, or that it is a way of our ego or our, the alter ego, whatever you call it, but it's a way of keeping you safe. And indeed, when we look at it, it's not actually the fear that is keeping us stuck, but it's actually our protective mechanism. So those imposter voices, they mean well, they mean to keep us safe. So, and they are ancient, and it's part of being human. There's not a single human being on the planet that doesn't have voices of self-doubt, of self-loathing, of things to keep you down, to keep you small. It's just part of the deal. And when you do start stepping up and stepping into your leadership and stepping into your potential and trying new things and trying to make a difference and trying to do things that are bigger than just trading time for money or just turning up to a job just for the paycheck, when you have a bigger mission, if you like, and a bigger vision to do things in the world, those voices have a tendency to get louder because they perceive the risk is going to be greater to you. So the first lot of beliefs is around fear. And as I said, it's not the fear itself that keeps you stuck. It is our response to that fear, and how strong are those voices. And for many people, they manifest very strongly in our bodies and strongly in physiological ways. So they feel so real. And this is why it's so hard to unlock ourselves from the grips of those voices and those beliefs by ourselves. We're just not geared as humans to do it by ourselves. And that's why getting some good support through professional coaching, perhaps if there's deeper background things combined with therapy, but I never recommend staying in therapy for life, because that will just perpetuate a lot of the old narrative, the old dialogue that's going on. So, but rest assured that this protective armor, if you like, Brené Brown talks about this in her Unlocking Us podcast, that the old armor, that is there to keep us safe. But as adults, and particularly at this 45 plus, this midlife frame, this is what is really important to take on board here. That not only are those old beliefs and the armor that has been protecting us, perhaps we needed it as children as we were growing up, but as adults we must unshackle ourselves from that armor, because whilst we're in that armor, we don't have the opportunity to share our gifts and to share our value with the rest of the world. So not only is it keeping you small within yourself, it's also stopping your gifts from being expressed and being consumed and being of value to others. And the third factor around this is, if we don't unshackle that armor, is that there are consequences. It's not a neutral state. If we don't unshackle those unhealthy beliefs, the imposter beliefs, the old things that kept us stuck, they actually will manifest, and the impact of that, the consequences of not utilizing our gifts, not finding them and bringing them out in the world, is that this will then feed those states of grief, depression, rage, anger, all of that stuff, the burnout that we see, that incredibly uncontrollable desire to please others that we often see, that incredible feeling of not being enough, that incredible feeling that we've got to have it all perfect before we put it out in the world. And this is where there are dire consequences if we don't put those beliefs to bed and get ourselves unshackled from them. So that's the fear beliefs. The second and related group of beliefs are the inherited beliefs and values that we have, that we've inherited by default from our early stage, from our carers, the people who were most dominant voices in our lives. And I don't know about you, but I know that the biggest imposter voices for me, I can actually recall hearing some of those voices, some of those words in anger from my parents. And they have stuck with me, and that is what needs to get unstuck and worked with. And I'll come back to what we do about that in a moment. But know that, again, each of us have this myriad of beliefs and values that we've inherited from our early caregivers, and that again takes conscious work, deliberate work with trained professionals to leave those be and create new beliefs and values that are much more in line with the person you want to become and the impact you want to have in the world. So that is, again, one of the solution pieces. But know that a lot of these beliefs and values are inherited, but they are not stuck in our DNA. That's the point. They're not unchangeable. We can change them, and we can move past them, and we can live with them. The third area of beliefs that keeps us stuck, and it impacts how we go about our next level career moves after 45, is that we may not be completely clear about what our specific gifts are. And again, I see this a lot in either women who have been like long time in the home, like putting their family first before putting themselves first. And again, whether that's being a mother, whether that has been in the service of a corporate or a government or the army or in service of something else, they've been so busy being that person in the name of the role for those others that when they actually stop and are asked, well, what are your special gifts? What are your superpowers? What is unique about you? They don't have those answers at the top of mind or at the tip of their tongue. And this is, again, completely normal because we're often so busy in the flow of life, in keeping all the plates spinning, in making sure that we are safe, right? If we go back to that element of safety and Maslow's, laws of needs and the hierarchy of needs and physical, psychological safety. There's a lot of talk at the moment in corporate leadership development and corporate cultures around how safe is your environment in the workplace to allow people to even be their whole selves and to share their gifts. So there's lots of work there. being talked about, I'm not sure how much is actually changing. And I think that's what we're also seeing, an exodus of people like myself. After many decades in corporate, we come out and we know that there's something else we can do, and it takes a little while to actually journey through that and find what that thing is. But the whole work around finding our gifts is the journey, and it can be the most difficult journey in our lives as well, because it means coming face to face with a lot of those fears and a lot of those voices that are going to say, you know, what gifts? You know, you're barely, you know, keeping your bills paid, or, oh, you're barely doing the, you know, all of that. Because there's always things in life that we're not 100% happy about. And when we look at the results we've produced, it's like, how much is enough? And what do I really have? And, you know, what have I really got to show for? You know, all of those sorts of things. Again, this is what it takes. It takes, you know, skills, it takes strategies, it takes, sometimes it takes some interventions to deal with all those things and replace them with things that are more nurturing, words that are more nurturing and more taking us towards what we want, as opposed to being stuck in the fear of the consequences of what may or may not happen if we don't deliver, or if we don't do what we say we're going to do, if we don't actually come through with the goods. So those three things all go on between our ears, and they've been going on for a very long time. And that also can be quite a surprise for a lot of people who perhaps are in those professional roles, who haven't done a lot of the deep dive work into their personal development, into their gifts, into their leadership style, into what it is they really want. And maybe we have done a lot of things. It can be easier to talk a lot about what we want. It can be a lot more difficult to talk about the things that keep us stuck, the feelings of fear that come up, to feel safe enough to express those and actually have some help and guidance to move through them and choose a path and be supported on that path, so that we can actually move towards something more meaningful, and that is going to also help us keep paying the bills. So if we don't look at this stuff, as I said, it manifests, it comes out anyway. If we try to ignore that stirring of wanting something more, but no, you're not good enough, just stay where you are, then we are going to find ourselves in anger, in being quick to anger. That can escalate to rage. We can find ourselves in depression, in grief, those negative voices can get bigger and louder. And so this is what ultimately will burn ourselves out, whether we're chasing our dream or not, whether we are making the time and prioritizing the time to decide how our ideal self and our ideal career and our ideal life should be, or how we would like it to be. So what are the three things we can do about it? Firstly is to do the work to build the awareness, the conscious awareness of the beliefs, the values, the language, the narrative that is going on. And like I said, we've got to start with the conscious to then be able to move into our unconscious. And to move into your unconscious, you absolutely need some help and assistance by a trained coach like myself, or others who are trained specifically in how to broaden that field of vision and go deeper with you, so you've got a more full view of exactly what your current state of beliefs are. And this is what also will help you move into a state of acceptance, again, in a supported way. And from that place of acceptance, we can take different actions. And there's no doubt about it that as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as professionals, we are known by our behaviors. People will judge us by what they see, but a lot of what we do is happening because of a direct result of our conscious and subconscious beliefs. So belief work is constant. The bigger the challenge, the bigger the goal, the bigger the project, the bigger and louder the what do you call it? The resistance. You know what we say, what resists persists. And that's why the Leading Your Career Change group is there to support you. So I encourage, if you're watching this on my Z-Axis page, come across to our Leading Your Career Change group, because particularly in months of November, December, I'm doing a really concerted effort to support you all to restart, refocus, replan our next few months so that we can all have a much more fruitful and more enjoyable and more fulfilling 2021. There's no doubt 2020 has been big and a lot of stress and change for pretty much everyone I have spoken to. So come and join us in Leading Your Career Change group. And do let me know in the comments below. We'll visit you whether you are here with me live or whether you're here on replay. And I am going to, it's 22 minutes, so I'm going to call this a day today. But just know that your beliefs are not cast in stone. I want to leave you with that message, that they are movable, they are changeable, and leadership is movable, leadership is changeable. Our financial state is movable, is changeable. We can make something different happen, and it's so much more fun and more productive if we can work together to do that, because we're social animals. It's in our DNA to connect and collaborate. So let's do that together. I do thank you so much for watching. So as usual, I ask you to now spend a couple of minutes reflecting. What did you learn? What did you love? And what's one thing you're going to take away and put into your workday today? Because we know that when we take something and action something within 24 hours, we've got a much better chance of having it stick. And then the next best thing is to actually share what you've learned, what you're doing, and teach somebody else. And that will also then accelerate and stimulate a more intentional ripple effect, a more intentional impact. And at the end of the day, isn't that what we're all here for? We want to make our time on this planet as impactful in a positive way, in a useful way as we can. So I'm going to sign off for now. Join me again next week for part 3 in Leading Your Career Change and what we can actually be doing to make that better. Thanks for watching.